Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
They had to report back, these federal air marshals who were surveilling me, about my appearance, about what kind of electronic devices that I had in my possession. Did I have any interactions with unknown individuals while traveling?
Did the Biden administration spy on Tulsi Gabbard? Senator Rand Paul says yes. He's accusing the White House of using federal air marshals to secretly track Gabbard.
Just last night, I received the first set of records from the department regarding Tulsi Gabbard's placement on the TSA Quiet Skies watch list. These documents confirm our suspicions. Federal air marshals surveilled the now Director of National Intelligence.
This allegedly happened in 2024. Gabbard was a private citizen then. Paul claims these marshals reported on her appearance and even what she was doing with her electronics on domestic flights. Gabbard says she was targeted for speaking out. She believes the government weaponized law enforcement against her. The claim, combating domestic terrorism. Paul wants to know if others were spied on, demanding accountability. Now, here's the twist. Gabbard is now Director of National Intelligence. She's vowing to end the politicization of intelligence and overhaul TSA practices.
Good afternoon, America. Welcome to Whistleblower Wednesday on the Rob Maness Show. And we're live on Worldview 2 and our X Spaces simulcast. And I think we've got a stream on X Spaces simulcast. Even the video stream's working on X today, which is a small miracle. Well, this is the day we honor the brave patriots who stand up for truth, transparency, and the safety of our nation. Today, we're celebrating the incredible work of our federal air marshals, the unsung heroes who keep our skies secure every single day. These dedicated men and women have saved countless lives through their vigilance, including protecting vulnerable children right here in our airports and on our flights. Their courage and commitment should inspire us all. And we're seeing real progress as more light is shown on these vital efforts that they're conducting. We're also highlighting important stories that remind us how essential, strong, accountable aviation security is for every American family traveling with peace of mind. From shining a spotlight on abused programs like you just saw, Operation Quiet Skies, now thankfully reformed under new leadership, I hope, to recognizing the frontline role air marshals play in combating human trafficking and ensuring our borders and skies stay safe. The dedication of these professionals is making every difference in the world. That's why I'm absolutely thrilled to have as our guest a true champion for our federal air marshals and for America's security, retired supervisory federal air marshal and executive director of the Air Marshal National Council, a philanthropist, award-winning executive producer of Unseen, Unheard, Unafraid, and a fearless advocate for transparency and reform, the remarkable Sonia Labasco. Sonia, welcome to the Rob Maness Show. Now, I think I read that it was your group that blew the whistle on the Quiet Skies program. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, Colonel Maness. And thank you so much for highlighting the great work that we've been doing for the last 25 years in the Federal Air Marshal Service. But it was my group. I had a group of air marshals that called me the very first trip that they were assigned to follow then Lieutenant Colonel Tulsi Gabbard. She was actually reporting to guard duty. We actually followed her to her duty station and surveilled her. So when they called me, of course, I was like, well, maybe it's an anomaly, right? Sometimes things can happen. We just can't explain. So the first mission, we said, we'll wait and see. So then the second mission with Miss Gabbard occurred. And I was like, well, after 3 missions, usually, if there's something that's not right, it will drop off and we would not follow somebody on Quiet Skies. But we went from the 3rd mission with Miss Gabbard to the 4th mission, to the 5th mission, to the 6th mission. And then we cried foul. We said, this is absolutely egregious. She's a decorated combat veteran. There's no reason for her to be on the domestic terrorist quiet skies list other than she actually did an interview. I know it's ridiculous, right? With
Yeah,
Laura
I
Ingraham,
know.
and then mysteriously after that interview with Laura Ingraham, she ends up on the, domestic terrorist list for TSA.
Yeah, yeah. I chose that clip even though it's old, but I get a chuckle out of it thinking that she wakes up as the director of national intelligence, which oversees that program now every single morning today, and I think there is some justice in the world.
Well, if there was ever any karma, that would have been it in our world that
Yeah,
circulated back. I mean, to take
yeah.
a decorated military veteran and try to
Hmm.
run her through the meat grinder, not only her, but her family as well, by the way. Her
Yeah.
family was placed on that list. It just wasn't her. So it is great to see her doing really great work for our country, bringing the transparency
Hmm.
that we need to end these egregious programs. So we're very proud of the work she's doing.
Now, now, if I'm correct on this, that program was established after 9/11 under the TSA to try to prevent another 9/11. Is that accurate, or is
Well,
that
it
just
was
the public?
actually, it's semi-accurate. When it got started in 2012, it was under Obama. So when
Hmm.
Quiet Sky started, we were actually doing true intel. These were special mission coverages where we received a secure brief, right? We were briefed by the
Hmm.
FBI in regards to someone that was actually on the terrorist watch list. Well, what happened during the Obama administration, TSA realized that they could go to Congress and utilize this program to show that we were following all of these individuals and get more money in our budget. So as the years drew on, this program became domestic overreach, that we were not getting the briefings from the FBI on the individuals that we were following. We just began following individuals to make it look like we were doing this broad mission, looking for domestic terrorists here in America.
Yeah. And am I correct in what I think I know is that this program was also, I mean, Miss Gabbard was just the most well-known person that the average citizen knows about, but was this program used to spy on just regular Americans that happened to be involved in something that the other parties, political powers didn't like
Well,
January
we
6th?
saw, yeah, we saw the really political swing and the pendulum swing with this program after what happened on January the 6th.
Hmm.
Then Mr. Benny Thompson sent a letter over to the TSA administrator because we, as the Federal Air Marshals, just to break it down, we are a law enforcement component stuck inside this huge administrative agency. So we are the only gun toters in the agency that carry under 49 USC. That's our body that governs our duties as air marshals. But Benny Thompson
Hmm.
sent a letter over to then Administrator David Pekoski, and he wanted to know what Pekoski was going to do to disrupt the travel of the white supremacists and the domestic terrorists that had been at the National Capital Region during January the 5th through the 7th. So at that point, the dog whistle got called.
Hmm.
Pekoski changed our entire mission within the Federal Air Marshal Service. We had never seen anything like it in our entire career. And we began following and watching individuals that were in the National Capital Region January the 5th through the 7th, whether they were at the Capitol or not. They could have just visited the National Capital Region on a vacation, job interview, funeral, wedding, you name it, and they were added to this list.
Did any of the marshals at the individual level object to this type of activity?
Yes, sir. This is the one thing we do in the Air Marshal National Council. Fortunately, I'm retired, so I'm out. So they
Hmm.
bring me a lot of information. We have the pulse every day of what's happening across this nation, both domestically and internationally, in our aviation security. So ground level air marshals, they were very upset about this. They brought this to their upper management, and you can only imagine the moment you put something in writing, the retaliation
Hmm.
you're going to receive internally. I mean, you were in the Air Force. You understand what I mean when you start documenting things that you think are a violation of the Constitution. You quickly become public enemy number one within the rank and file. So we had many that were protesting. They brought a lot of it to me. Of course, you've seen Rand Paul's congressional hearings that he's had.
Hmm.
He's really dug into this, and he's been a champion for the air marshals to bring this forward and showcase. But yes, we actually during the time back in 2021 through 2024, we were instrumental in helping getting Mayorkas impeached. The federal air marshals were with the information that we brought to the oversight committees. And we were super excited that he was impeached in the House because of all the treasonous actions that he had committed against our country. And then, of course, the Senate, they voted to let him off. And that was very disappointing. But we have been in this battle ever since we've seen this pendulum swing, that no risk assessment was done to take the air marshals off the aircraft that we were already flying. High probability for an incident to occur. We were just removed off of those aircraft with no risk assessment and assigned because Benny Thompson wanted us there.
Yeah, because I mean the air marshals aren't just assigned to fly on a flight because there's intel that there's a terrorist on board or somebody on the watch list, right? I mean it's a random selection. There's a randomness to it too, isn't there? In addition to the identified flights, and I'm very comfortable with that. I like knowing that there's possibly 2 air marshals on my plane every time I go fly.
Yeah, and then we travel. Yes, sir. That's still very accurate. It's random because it's picked on the size of the plane, East Coast, West Coast. If we look what happened at 9/11, all those flights were large body aircraft. They were going East Coast to West Coast, so they had a large amount of fuel. So the random selection is based on things of that nature, East Coast to West Coast. We know that DC was a target on there as well with the Pentagon. So you got to look at some of the larger areas that we cover more on the eastern ridge. I was based out of Orlando, so the eastern seaboard was, a part of our trips every day from Orlando to DC and back because that was an area that we had to ensure going into the National Capital Region we had coverage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the National Council itself, how long has it been around? And what other functions do you provide besides just the whistleblower function?
Well, we're actually a professional association. We're not a union. We're a professional association with retirees and current federal air marshals. We started in 2019. We were getting really concerned because of the air marshals. Some of the things that are happening internally is we're not regulated for our flight schedules. So the FAA regulates pilots and flight attendants regarding their rest time, but the air marshals have none. The Aviation Transportation Security Act back in 2001, when Bush announced that, gave the TSA administrator near dictatorial powers in regards to our scheduling. So we started that to try to make some of the quality of life changes internally for the air marshals. And we started working on some of those issues as well. But we provide legal services if there's a shooting or any type of critical incident. We have legal coverage for that. We have coverage for workers' compensation if you get injured on the job. Unfortunately, if you're injured severely and you have to retire, we handle that with the Office of Professional Management. So we do a lot of internal things for the workforce itself, on top of now taking on this monster, after January the 6th, and to watch our mission be so just depleted the way that it was for nothing more than political gain.
Yeah. I lost my train of thought there. I had a question I wanted to ask you. The air marshals themselves, when we're talking about this organization that you have, it's not a lobbyist organization, right? You're not a bunch of lobbyists getting big bucks.
No,
right?
sir. No, sir. Absolutely not. We were formulated because of what happened at 9/11. The air marshals that I work with today, we all came over right after 9/11 in 2001, and we said never again on our watch. So we band together. We're a group that is concerned about national security. We're concerned about our aviation security, and we're there for America. We're not lobbyists. We're not looking to do anything other than to make aviation the best and the most secure we can for American people. We don't ever want to see 2,977 Americans murdered on American soil ever again after 9/11. So our goal, number one, is for America and the safety of America.
Yeah, somebody that was in the Pentagon on 9/11 and whose entire life and family's life had to change because of it, and flew my first flight on September 30th, 2001 afterwards. I definitely appreciate that y'all have done this and are taking care of this force, because this force, while it might have existed pre 9/11, it has become really the bulwark of preventing this from ever happening again. And you have lived up to what you swore to do, Sonia. Well, we got to take a commercial break. When we come back, we'll talk about, I don't know. I think we're talking about countering human trafficking amongst the federal air marshals. This is amazing. I wasn't aware of how involved they were, but Ms. Labasco will tell us about this mission. It's pretty incredible.
What if millions around the world could access Bible teaching and worldview training for free right now without hitting a paywall? That's exactly what happens every day at worldviewtube.com because of the Worldview Weekend Foundation. We don't lock our live stream behind PayPal. We don't restrict our content to members only. Instead, the Worldview Weekend Foundation helps cover the cost of delivering free educational and ministry programming to people across the nation and around the world. And it's not just programming. My Sunday night church service, where I taught verse by verse through Revelation for 18 months, and now I am teaching through the book of Daniel, is made possible through the support of our church, Worldview Weekend Foundation. If you believe this kind of truth-centered biblical teaching must continue, donate today. Go now to worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address and phone number there if you'd rather give by phone or mail. That's worldviewfoundation.com. Thank you.
Human trafficking is a widespread problem in the United States. My name is Monty Cooper Jr. I am a federal air marshal assigned to the Center for Countering Human Trafficking. Human trafficking involves the force, fraud, and coercion of an individual to commit illegal acts such as sex trafficking, forced labor, things of that nature. At the Center for Countering Human Trafficking, it involves every component of Department of Homeland Security and the fight against trafficking. A lot of traffickers transport their victims via aviation. Aviation personnel will be on the front line to fight human trafficking. Just being visible at the airport and just looking out for things that kind of pique your interest. Some of the common indicators are someone who's being forced to do something beyond their control, not being able to have control over their particular belongings, their identification documents. Everyone should have the mindset to get involved. It starts on the front line. Once you make that tip, law enforcement comes into play to investigate. But it starts with the regular person that's transversing the airport or taking a bus or taking a train. Your tips matter more than anything.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday again, and my guest today is Executive Director of the Air Marshal National Council and former Supervisory Federal Air Marshal Agent, Sonia Labasco. And Sonia, the aircraft space and airports are unique environments. I would imagine that the training that's given to our federal air marshals to counter human trafficking, especially child sex trafficking, have to be really, really good because you're in especially on the aircraft, you're in a very confined space, and those normal markers that you might have heard some of that in the video there may or may not exist. What can citizens that are travelers do to spot this potential stuff like the air marshals are looking for?
Well, Colonel, one thing they can do, when you're traveling, you're in an unusual place and you're not aware of your surroundings, especially moving through the airport. But you can look at people's behaviors. If you look at, let's say, for example, you have a small child, and that child, let's say 6 or 7 years old, they're not looking at the adult they're traveling with. There's no interaction that would be of a normal family type situation. Pay attention to what's going on there. A lot of the time, the victims of human trafficking, and I work very well with many. I'm a mentor for human trafficking in Central Florida, so I do a lot of work. I've done that for 6 years in this arena. Is to pay attention to the surroundings, and if something doesn't feel right, go to the ticket counter, go to the gate agent, have them make a phone call to every airport has a police department. Have them make a phone call for the police department to come over and check it out. I had rather be wrong and say something than not say something and realize later on there's a news article to where this child was trafficked. So you can just pay attention to your surroundings and take some action. I'm not telling you to get involved, but please be aware. This can happen when you're at the rental cars, anywhere that you're at and traveling. Just be aware when you're in the airport, especially was based out of Orlando, 60 million passengers. If you can only imagine how many individuals are moving throughout that airport every day, and they're never paying attention that that could be an illicit, movement through the airport of someone trafficking women, children, and men as well.
Yeah, I live in Gulfport, Mississippi, and our airport is just a couple of miles off of the I-10, east-west I-10. In New Orleans, it's just an hour to the west. In Florida, an hour to the east. So we're a major pathway for human trafficking between these types of locations on the ground. And I can see people. I can see that in my mind's eye that be dumping into the Gulfport International Airport very easily, or out of there by bringing kids in and young women in. The Air Marshal Service themselves, how much of the force is dedicated to that, or is this a broad mission for every Air Marshal, or are there specialists in this area?
Well, we get regular training. We're part of the DHS Blue campaign as well. You'll see a lot of DHS Blue campaigns at most of the airports across the nation. So we do receive some specific training regarding working with the flight crews, and the flight crews are also, trained on human trafficking as well. They've done a very good job to get their personnel, what we call the stakeholders, trained in this as well, because at the end of the day, we have 40 million people that are trafficked. It's a $236 billion business. And the commodity is a human being. So it's going to take everyone paying attention to try to help combat human trafficking. But we do have special, they're called task force officers. They're assigned to HSI. They're actually a dual role. They're a federal air marshal, but they're also working with Homeland Security investigations under task force for, child exploitation. And our task force officers across the nation have done a brilliant job working to combat, and not only prosecuting those that were involved, but also recovering children. We just had one of the largest successful Bring Children Home mission back in October of 2025 in Central Florida. We were able to work with the U.S. Marshals Service and bring 122 missing children back to a safe location. So we're very proud of the work that we're doing in regards to human trafficking.
I'm glad you brought up the U.S. Marshals, because I'm more familiar with their task force that they use to combat child trafficking and human trafficking. What is the linkage between the Federal Air Marshal Service and the U.S. Marshal Service? Is there anything formal, or is it more a informal coordination?
It's more of an informal. We would like to make it more formal. We would love to see a memorandum of understanding with all the Federal Air Marshal's offices. So we have 20 offices nationwide at major airports, and it depends on the special agent in charge of that field office, whether they want to cooperate or work with the U.S. Marshal Service. So I think there's a greater partnership that we could receive there between both agencies, DOJ and DHS, because at the end of the day, it's about providing the resources to recover these children. We know there were over 1 million children brought in the last 4 years under the Biden administration for the unaccompanied children's program. So we know those kids are out there and they're just waiting on somebody to come and find them. So let's keep the temperature up to try to make sure these partnerships are happening at the federal law enforcement level, and every available resource is given to this, egregious crime.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's still over 300,000 that are unlocated. Of the, I think there were about 760-ish thousand kids that were designated as neither not located or missing of that million or so. And you guys and the U.S. Marshals and ICE and the Border Patrol and all law enforcement really have done a fabulous job once it got focused on tracking these kids down and figuring out where they're at and recovering them. I think it's phenomenal. It's just scary being a dad and a granddad. I'm sure you feel the same way. You're thinking about your kids and grandkids, and all these children are missing, and most of them are being exploited in one way or another.
And it is really sad, Colonel, because a lot of them don't speak English. They're from other countries. They're from Ecuador, they're different, Venezuela, different countries. They're here, and their parents sent them here, maybe not knowing what was going to happen, but they're here now, and we have to do the best. Children, no matter where they're from, they're our children, okay? Children are innocent, and they have nothing to do with any political pendulum that's swinging in our country right now over deportations or things that are happening. We should never allow our children to go in a situation when they're being trafficked in the way that they are now. So we keep praying every day that we're going to bring all those kids into a safe location and help them get out of the destitute and the situations they're in, because working with survivors, I have to tell you, the stories are pretty mortifying.
Yeah, and I imagine the agents themselves are traumatized sometimes. Is there a program to help them deal with what they have to see and interact with in this particular program?
Yes, sir. Colonel Maness, we contract with Under the Shield based out of Arizona. Under the Shield is for military, first responders, firefighters, law enforcement, and they provide counseling service or coaching sessions. It's long term. You know, usually in the government, you'll get 3 sessions that are provided by the EAP. It's a contract service. So the Air Marshal National Council has contracted internally. So any federal law enforcement officer, you don't have to be a member of our association. We will provide those resources for you to reach out to Under the Shield so you can talk about the things that you've witnessed. You know, when you're going into some of these locations and you're finding children in cages that are tied up in the things that have happened to them, of course, you know, any human being that's functioning is not going to be able to just go on with life after you see these things that have happened like that. So yes, we provide that resource as well.
Yeah, and do the Air Marshals as a group have challenges like veterans do with suicide and post-traumatic stress, those kinds of issues?
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, with the Air Marshals, we've buried 24 to suicide. We've been around for 25 years, and about one a year we're losing, and we're doing the best that we can to try to provide those resources. But it is a struggle. A lot of the veterans that do come back and they go to work with the Federal Air Marshal Service, some of them, you know, they've deployed in combat regions, Afghanistan and Iraq, and they've just seen the most horrendous things. So we're glad to be that bridge for individuals when they need it, and we stay long term. A lot of our air marshals, we've been with Under the Shield since 2019, and this is what I love about this organization is they can stay with them. They have a stress coach. We also have professional doctors if needed on staff, and they can stay with them from the day that they call all the way through their career. So there's no ending time for you to receive counseling, and also for not only the officer but for their family as well. You know, anything that impacts you on the job, when you walk through the door at night, it's going to impact your family. So we counsel the entire family unit because we believe in keeping the family unit together.
Oh, absolutely. Well, it's a family affair. I mean, it's, you know, when I first went through my treatment, my wife was invited to come with me, the very first doctor that we ever saw, because it's important for the veteran, the individual, to hear from their loved one, especially their wife, who's, in my case, my wife, or your spouse, because they're the closest person to you. And they see things that you can no longer see. They hear things that you can no longer hear, that you're probably missing, at least at the beginning of the treatment. So that's fantastic. Well, this is a pretty scarce resource, right? How large is the Federal Air Marshal Service?
Well, when we started after 2001, after 9/11, prior to 9/11, there were only 33 air marshals, and we only deployed on international missions. So after 9/11, it taught us a lot of things. You know, the hijackers took all domestic bound missions, so it changed our mission then. And the agents at the TSA, we sprung up to about 4,000, and that's open source. I know the number's classified, but
Yeah.
this is open source information I'm discussing. We sprung up to around 4,000. And I have to tell you, in today's world, we need to go back somewhere in a higher number because we're nowhere near that number today.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that in the next segment because I saw this story about how some agents are flying for ICE, and some of them may be even flying unarmed on some of these missions. And we have to protect this resource. I mean, the arming of any agent is in many ways a self-protection tactic too, in addition to an ability to take down a criminal, especially a violent one that may be hurting the public or hurting somebody else or trying to hurt your partner, those kind of things. It's a self-protection device, arming agents. And the craziest thing that I've heard is seeing air marshals on aircraft full of bad guys, unarmed. It's nuts. And wait till you see this video clip coming in We'll be right back with Sonia Labasco.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed.
Kate, you know, air marshals are federal law enforcement officers highly trained to stop another 9/11 style attack on board a commercial passenger plane. But now the Trump administration has reassigned about 200 of them so far to do security, as you mentioned, on these ICE deportation flights. Now, air marshals are mostly unarmed on these ICE flights. And according to internal documents and communications, their duties include serving snacks to detainees, bathroom escorts, pat downs. And one group that advocates for air marshals says they're also doing lice checks and trash removal. Now, the administration has tapped federal employees from across the government to help pull off this aggressive immigration crackdown. All while the data shows that the number of ICE flights have shot up some 34% since Trump took office. Now, the TSA, the agency that oversees the Air Marshal program, tells CNN, quote, air marshals are proud to assist their ICE colleagues by providing in-flight security functions on these flights. But one group that represents air marshals says the move is putting commercial aviation at risk. The Air Marshal National Council sent a cease and desist letter to DHS and filed a complaint with the agency's inspector general to stop the use of air marshals on these ICE flights. And adding to the controversy, Kate, the group argues that air marshals are essentially supplementing the security workforce of a private contractor that's already being paid by the federal government to provide security on board. We did ask about air marshals' duties as far as taking out the trash, these lice checks, and handing out sandwiches on these deportation flights. TSA did not respond to those questions. Kate.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and my guest is the executive director of the Air Marshal National Council, Sonia Labasco. And Sonia, there's a lot of little things in that clip there, but the biggest one that jumped out to me when I heard about the story was the air marshals flying unarmed. I mean, these individuals, these Americans that are agents on the Federal Air Marshal Service, have to be the best marksman trained individuals in the world, really, because of the environment in that cylindrical cigar shaped tube full of people there, right? Why would they not arm them? And what's the council's position on all that?
Well, what you saw in that clip, I knew there was some, CNN, there's always some things you got to question and how they coined that. But for the most part, 70% of that is absolutely correct. Because we're part of DHS, and I think one of the biggest issues, Colonel, that lies here is that we, as the Federal Air Marshals, are inside this TSA administrative unit. TSA does not really want the Federal Air Marshals armed in the first place. They tried to take our weapons when we were deployed under Biden down at the southern border. So we fought this battle with TSA more than once. They tried to take our weapons when they deployed us to the southern border. Wanted the Border Patrol to say we could not have weapons on any of the compounds we were working. And we beat that issue. But here we are. Let's fast forward now. TSA is doing the same thing. I do not believe that President Trump knows that the Federal Air Marshals have been disarmed. I do not believe that he knows that. But what TSA has done, they've nestled us in because we're part of DHS. And they said we're doing dual roles. We're going to be EROs, that's enforcement and removal officers under the ICE statute. Now, ICE cannot carry firearms on an airplane because they're not authorized to do that. but you're using federal air marshals in that same vein. And the problem that the air marshals have, it's not that we don't want to help with deportations or help, make sure our aviation is safe, but you're taking a resource that's already depleted. Our resources have not been built up in the last 5 years. We need to start building those resources. So when you're taking 200 air marshals and you're taking their weapons away from them and you're putting them on these aircraft where, as you said, these are some of the worst of the worst, you're not really doing the right thing by, number one, our aviation security. We can't destabilize our aviation security for deportations when you're paying a contract company to do these duties. And everything that was said in that report is true. The air marshals were doing lice checks on the tarmac. They're handing out sandwiches and cookies. They have leg shackles when they go on the aircraft. They're taking those leg shackles off. These individuals are unrestrained during some of these long flights, and it's quite a dangerous situation. And we really should not be put in the position that we have to come out and make this known on a national scale. But the only way to change it is for someone to recognize this is wrong and it should be stopped.
Yeah, who's the operational control over TSA and the air marshals through the TSA? Who are the individuals that have that right now? Do you know who they are?
Well, yeah. Ty McNeil, she's a female. She is an acting administrator. David Pekoski was removed on the day of President Trump's inauguration. He was removed from the TSA administrator. We have not had an administrator since President Trump's inauguration. They've had an acting in, and she is definitely a Biden resistor. I have to tell you, TSA has got a lot of those that are ingrained within resisting the administration as we speak today. There's about 5 layers within this agency that needs to be removed under the fact of what they did just during the Biden administration and allowing our borders to be open, but also putting convicted sex assault and murderers on flights and flying them anywhere across the United States to drop them off in other local communities. We've seen the devastation from illegals murdering women and children and the things that happened during that time. But these individuals are still in charge at TSA.
Yeah. Some of this duty description sounds a little bit like Bureau of Prisons officers handling prisoners that have been convicted and those kind of things. Is that the approach with this? Is they treat it like a flying prison?
Yes, sir. That's exactly this. That's the approach that is being used. And and if you look at all the shootings that we've had at ICE facilities, right, to have air marshals on the ground there, and they don't have a weapon to respond, and they're the best shooters in the world. Just really everything about this is so upside down. It makes no sense, other than the security company can't fulfill its contract, then they need to find another company. GEO Security is the one that's working on this contract, and if they can't fulfill those duties, they need to get a new company.
Yeah. Have air marshals been mistaken for ICE agents and attacked by these insurgents that we're seeing around the country? And that's my
I can't
term.
tell you. Well, yes, they've been attacked in some of the restaurants. There was a news media that came out about 2 weeks ago. Air marshals were surrounded out in Los Angeles at a restaurant. They had to call the local police department. I think it took about 14 officers to respond to the location to keep the angry crowd from, hurting the air marshals that were out for dinner. And they had to swoop them away in a van to get them out of the area because the crowd thought that they were ICE officers, the way that they had looked, the way that they were dressing. They were in plain clothes. But someone said they're ICE officers in the restaurant, and then the whole restaurant tried to put, some physical and egregious actions against the air marshals, and they called 911 to get them out of there. It's crazy.
Luckily, they weren't hurt. I remember seeing the reporting on that. Do the air marshals, if they come across an illegal alien with a violent criminal record, say on an aircraft, and they happen to figure out that that's that person, are they authorized to arrest them, or do they have to just detain them and hold them for ICE?
Well, Colonel, this is the challenges we have in the Transportation Security Administration, being the only law enforcement component. Federal air marshals they don't have access to check someone's name like that. They don't have access to NCIC, FCIC. They would have to get permission to call our Mission Operations Center to be able to run that person's name through a computer database system. So we're kind of flying blind when it comes to that. We do not have the resources we need to be able to tell you if that's illegal or not.
If you had complete authority for a day, how would you reorganize the federal air marshals to correct some of these situations?
Well, the first thing I would do, I would look at why it's not working in this administrative component, and I would move the federal air marshals over to Homeland Security investigations. We don't need an entire agency. We need a component inside a law enforcement unit, like a specialty unit, like a special forces. We've done the background work on all of this. If they were to transfer the air marshals over to Homeland Security investigations, we would save $500 million a year. So the air marshal budget would be cut because we're wasting so much money on large offices in these large cities that are not really, the air marshals are a mobile workforce. They don't need a field office, but in every office where the 20 offices are currently located, we have a Homeland Security office there as well. So we could be using a dual space. We don't need to use and waste hundreds of million dollars on contracts and real estate. That would be the first thing that I would do. We've been trying to work this through Congress as well, is to get this transfer to happen, because it only makes sense that you put a federal law enforcement entity to operate with another federal law enforcement entity that really understands 49 USC and how to utilize us, and TSA does not.
Yeah, unfortunate. That's very unfortunate. We've got a question in the live audience. We'll go ahead and take that before this last break. And I think we have one more after that. We'll get there in the last break. Go ahead, Shell.
We have Cookie, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you both for what you do. Just a couple questions. You were talking about the child trafficking and whatnot. How far so if the agents find somebody or suspect, how far do they investigate in, or is it turned over to the FBI to follow up with? And and if since Trump has taken over, have there been some major policy swings, changes, or people removed that were doing some of these things like spying on Tulsi Gabbard?
Well, the first question, it depends on the geographic location. If the air marshals are on the airplane and something happens in the airport, it's going to be the FBI. If they're off at a location, at a hotel or some other location, it's going to be the Homeland Security investigations. So that phone call is going to be made. And yes, those cases are going to be handed over to the authority of the geographic location whose responsibility that is in their area of responsibility. On the second question, in regards to the Trump administration, David Pekoske was not welcome to come back to the TSA, which was a great day for us because we knew that he was not the proper person, to do this job. But other than that, we have not seen a lot within the Federal Air Marshal Service. But as I said, what I wanted to say earlier, I'm not knocking the administration. What I'm saying is they may not be aware that these individuals are dug in. 5 layers of rot within the TSA. This place has been growing for many, many years, and they want to resist the policies in a bipartisan manner. TSA should not be swinging left or right. They should be right down the middle because it's national security. And we're not seeing the change that we know that we hope is coming soon within TSA.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, because I go through airports a lot, and I see some inconsistencies sometimes. One is I think the liquids thing, which I think Secretary Noem eliminated the liquids issue. I believe she did anyway, and having to take your shoes off. But I still see PSA people at the security areas doing the same kind of checks, enforcing that issue, even though the policy has been changed. Do the agents get in touch with you guys to just to keep track of these kind of things, so it's documented, and then when you're able to advocate in front of Congress and those kind of places, you can bring it up on behalf of the American people?
We do, and it varies, right? You're going, as I said, you're going to have resistors. I mean, Secretary Noem can put out the best policies, that we can have across the United States. But if there's resistance to the administration internally, those policies won't matter, because they're going to do what they want to do to try to be a disruptor any way that they can. And we're seeing a lot of that, Colonel, within the TSA. There's a lot of disruption going on, and there's a lot of individuals that are, that are just trying to resist the administration and our new goals that we need to be carrying out for aviation security.
Yeah, there's one way to fix that. Make them not government employees and go back to contract employees, and then hold them accountable to the contract, write it in the contract. That's the best way to fix it, in my opinion. But we got to take our last break, Sonia. When we come back, we'll see a little video talking about the training that the federal air marshals get. And I want to talk about why young people should actually look at this as a place to do your public service or to serve your country, if that's what you want to do for a few years. I'll be right back with Sonia Labasca.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
A simulation of a worst-case scenario.
This is a hijacking.
A mid-flight hijacking. Exactly what federal air marshals are training to stop at this sprawling facility in New Jersey.
We are tasked with patrolling and securing the skies.
And there are thousands of them flying in pairs daily. As they're always undercover, we cannot show you their faces, but chances are they've likely sat next to you on a flight, laying low.
We are ready for anything. We're 100% trained and know exactly how to deal with certain situations.
Another drink for me.
These days, that means unruly passengers. In December, 2 air marshals broke their cover on this flight from D.C. to Los Angeles.
You don't get it!
When a passenger became combative.
What circumstances will an agent intervene, and what things will they allow the flight crew to handle?
If a situation gets to a point where it's an arrestable offense, an assault, or something to a much higher gravity, then we will absolutely intervene.
Future air marshals have to be precise in changing conditions.
2 rounds, 2 seconds.
Training here in low-light scenarios with moving targets and even a replica of a first-class cabin layout.
You may have upwards of 300 passengers on some of these aircraft. So the last thing that we want to have happen is one of our air marshals accidentally shoot innocent persons. We have some of the highest marksmanship standards out of any federal agency out there.
Federal air marshals, would you say they're the best shot in the biz?
Yes.
Their proof? A marksmanship score which measures accuracy.
What's your accuracy?
I am shooting a 287.
287
Yes.
out of 300?
Yes.
This recruit, who we cannot identify, had no previous law enforcement experience.
I wanted something bigger than me.
Get back! Get back!
New hires slowed during the pandemic.
Drop the weapon!
But this year, 3 new graduating classes are kicking off an effort to fill the ranks. The agency making it a priority to recruit from underrepresented groups.
You know, sometimes situations where I feel like a female would be better suited to handle a situation.
You will be the last line of defense on an aircraft should something go wrong. How does that feel?
It's a big job, but it's an honor.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Whistleblower Wednesday, and we're having a very detailed discussion about the Federal Air Marshal Service with the Executive Director of the Air Marshal National Council, Sonia Labasco. And Sonia, I just wanted to use this last segment to show the training clip there and give you the opportunity to talk about the training and why young Americans, if they want to serve their country, should consider this service.
Well, I have to tell you, the training course, we have courses in Artesia, New Mexico, or Glencoe at our Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. It's a 12-week Part 1 course, and it's absolutely some of the best training in the world. I was a law enforcement officer in Daytona Beach 12 years prior to coming over to the Air Marshals, and I always thought I was a sharpshooter. at the police department. But when I came over to the Air Marshals, they really made me a tactical shooter. There's a big difference, as you said earlier, working in a cylinder and ensuring that your shot placement is perfect. And there's a lot of benefits to working with the Federal Air Marshal Service as well. We have college reimbursement up to $60,000 with a commitment. I think for three years you can receive a college reimbursement, which is very, in today's world, when you hear the college kids are coming out today and they can't get a job and pay for their college, it's a great part of a package. But you get some of the best training in the world. You get to build camaraderie. You're doing a great service to our country. You're preventing another 9/11. You get to travel and see the world, but also building relationships like I have with the Air Marshals. What we're doing now with the Air Marshal National Council, we have a lot of esprit de corps, and it's just a wonderful thing for a young person to experience. And we'd love to bring them on as a member. If they want to get hired and come on, we'll welcome them into the Air Marshal National Council with wide open arms.
So where does a young person go to start the process of applying?
Well, usajobs.gov, that's the best, that's the only place that it's posted. You'll also see it, follow them on Facebook and Twitter, the Federal Air Marshal Service, TSA. They host a lot of recruitment engagement at local, like in Philadelphia, they had one last year. I do think they had another one over in Orlando. So you'll see these recruitment and engagement events. That's a great place for a young person to come and just speak to someone that's on the ground level there that's recruiting for the agency. But usajobs.gov or TSA.gov is a good place to start.
Are there any special like education level requirements beyond the high school graduate, or can you just apply if you're in good health and?
Well, after 9/11, after 9/11, they didn't have the ability to do that, right? Because we had to stand up a workforce really quick, in order to bring some calm in our community, in the aviation community. But now they prefer a 4-year degree. It's not required, but there's some things that they do prefer in a 4-year degree. They really like previous service in the military or law enforcement, firefighter, someone that's had a Rolodex for working through critical incidents and has that critical incident Rolodex. Firearms is great if you've got some of those skills because you'll need them. I have to tell you, the firearms course, we did about 10,000 rounds down range. It was really great training. But it's a wonderful career, and it's a good place for a young person to get started, and also to have, just a tempo of the mission of the nation that we need to carry on. Our Air Marshals are getting older, as you can tell, Colonel. As you go through decades of your career, you age out, and that's what's happening. You have to be 37 to join. You have to be prior to 37 to join for the Federal Air Marshals, because 20 years and 57 you're out. So a lot of our guys have approached that age gap, and they've retired or they're retiring very soon.
Yeah, you reminded me of the question I lost my train of thought on earlier, and that was you mentioned that the FAA and the military, for our aviators too, we have crew rest requirements where it's very carefully monitored. We have a strict scheduling process and a very strict qualification process every month. Because the flight environment is so unique and dangerous. It's inherently dangerous. It's not like you're getting in a cruiser and driving on a piece of pavement in a two-dimensional world. You're getting on an aircraft. You got to be the best of the best at marksmanship. You got to be, I'm sure, pretty good at hand-to-hand combat, no matter what your size is, and how to restrain people without breaking the place up too much because you're inside such a small space. Has there been any adequate personnel policies for enforcing a crew rest type regimen for the Federal Air Marshals? Because the environment itself is physically and mentally taxing just riding it.
Colonel, there has not. We're still fighting that to this day. As I said, the Aviation Transportation Security Act gives TSA near dictatorial powers regarding our schedule. That needs to be evaluated. We're 25 years into this, right? That needs to go back, and we should fall under some aviation requirements for FAA, but we do not. So our men and women can fly up to 24 hours in a day. They can go to a different country, maybe go from one country to another country with no rest. We've been at the airport. I've been at the airport on internationals. We're required to come hours early to the airport. We'll be at the airport early, and then our flight's canceled because the crew didn't get their proper rest. So we'll be sitting waiting another 3 hours for another crew to come in. So we may be 6 to 9 hours into our day before we ever start our mission because the crew had to rest.
Yeah, yeah, we need to fix that, folks. If you're listening to this and you're an advocate with Congress and the TSA or any of the administration folks, and you have contacts, you need to bring that up. We got one more question in the live audience. We'll take that before we get to the end of the show. Go ahead, Shell.
Yes, Ms. Labasco, I was just wondering, you mentioned Orlando. I'm very close to there. What are some of the signs that we should be looking for as citizens going through these terminals for human trafficking or a child in distress?
Well, I can tell you the Orlando Airport has been an amazing partner. The Greater Orlando Aviation Authority, if you go through the Orlando Airport, you're going to see mostly in the restroom areas, there's going to be signage. There's phones placed throughout the airport that you as a passenger can walk over and report something if you need to. But the signs they're pretty, if you think about every day, what does an interaction look like between two people that are traveling? Are they talking? Are they sharing ticket information? Are they getting something to eat together? Does one person look very well established, like they're clean? Does the other person look like they're maybe, got some issues, they're not dressed as well? Do they look confused? Is that individual allowing the other person to speak to the ticket counter, or do they have to stand over to the side? Watch the body language. The body language tells you anything. Most everything we do is 90%. It's through our communications with our eyes, our looks, our expressions. If there's someone that you see that's not communicating at all, verbally or non-verbally, there's a problem.
Yeah, especially in a small child, right? I mean, most children are not self-absorbed, I guess.
Well, you're gonna see them throwing a fit in the airport, right? They're upset.
Yeah.
They wanted to drink. They wanted a stuffed animal. There's going to be some type of normal behavior there. But when you see the abnormal, that's when you really need to pay attention. It's not the normal you're looking for. It's who does not fit in the crowd, and what's the difference in their mannerisms based on everybody else that's in the crowd.
Yeah. Before we get to the end here, what are you guys' top 3 priorities in the council looking out to the future as you're working to help the administration resolve some of these issues?
Well, we need to leave TSA. We have got to get transferred out of the Transportation Security Administration. That is our number one goal. We know that that's going to help us set a platform up for federal law enforcement in the air marshals that's going to be successful. We can do a lot of dual roles over at HSI as well because, they're number one in combating child trafficking. So we've got some cross duties that we could be doing as well. We fly all over the world. We see everything. There's no reason not to use us in a capacity that we could be utilized while we're on the plane looking for bad guys as well. We can be looking for all bad guys, just not one bad guy. That's the number one goal. The number 2 goal is to save the American people some money. $500 million a year. When we came out and started blowing the whistle on TSA Quiet Skies, we would have saved the American taxpayer $15 billion if the agency would have just listened to the internal complaints that were coming from the air marshals regarding Quiet Skies. Think about that. $15 billion would go a long way right now, would it not? We could do some great things with that. And the third thing is let's implement some scheduling. We have to make sure that our men and women are rested, as you said earlier. When you don't have the proper rest, you're not going to be bringing your A game. And when you're on an aircraft and you have a weapon, you need to be pretty alert. You need to be rested. So that's the top things we want to do is get out of TSA, save the American taxpayer some money, and make sure our men and women are taken care of properly and they have the proper rest.
Yeah, the air marshals should be treated at a minimum like air crews are, with a strict duty day that can be waived for operational necessity in an emergency, and with strict crew rest requirements at a minimum. So we'll be looking out to help do that advocacy as much as we can. Any conversations I get in with anybody at TSA and DHS, I'll certainly bring it up. I appreciate what you guys do there, Sonia. And tell folks how they can get in touch with the council, get in touch with you, follow you where you're at on social medias and all that stuff before I let you go.
Absolutely. You can hit us up on our website. It's airmarshalnc.com. That's airmarshalnc.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at airmarshals_FAMS. You can hit me, Sonia Labasco. It's Labasco Sonia on X. We've got an inbox too. Send us an email, reach out to us. We've got our phone numbers on our website, and we'd love to hear from the American people. We have a lot of people that reach out, Colonel, in support, so we thank them for that. It's always good to get a pat on the back for doing a good job, and that's not been so great lately. So thank you for having us on to showcase some of the issues we need to definitely tackle, and I think we can do it in 2026.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm very proud to know you guys. Thank you so much for spending so much time with my audience. I've not had anybody on from the Air Marshal Service before. You are perfect, and I look forward to having you back whenever we need to get you on to get some of your messaging out.
Well, thank you, sir, and God bless America. We appreciate you having us.
Yeah. God bless you guys. Keep up the great work. All right, tomorrow's Truth Thursday. It happens to be the day before early voting ends in Texas, and there's a big movement to ban Sharia law in Texas. We're going to talk about that. I'll see you then.